Good morning, friends. Good morning and welcome. Great to have you with me this morning. I'm Brian. I'm the pastor at Christ United Methodist Church in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. And you are here for PB Reads, a chapter a day of the Bible, and we are working on the Gospel of Mark. We just started it the other day. Today is day three. Day three. So since it's day three, that means we are on chapter 3. You got it. That's right. Yes. Wonderful. So I'm so humbled. I'm so pleased that you want to join me, that you feel benefit that this has been beneficial to you. And a lot of you have been doing it right along for the last several months, which is great. Um, so we're doing the Gospel of Mark, just started the other day. Today's day 3. There's only 16 chapters in the Gospel of Mark, which is kind of why I picked it. It's a shorter one after our pretty long book of Exodus. And I'll be able to finish it before I take a couple weeks off for vacation. And I see out of the corner of my eye a whole bunch of comments already popping up, which is great. You folks know what I'm going to say before I say it. Facebook and YouTube only give me numbers of people. Please, I like to know who it is that's watching. So say hello to me, say hello to each other, good morning, whatever you want to say. Somebody said it was like the romper room check-in or something like that yesterday, and then sent me a YouTube link with the video. Oh my gosh, is that funny? I guess as an adult looking back at it, it was pretty corny. I'm sure kids loved it. But good morning to all of you. Glad to be here in person. Yes, wonderful. Good to have you with us this morning. Good morning on the last day of March. Yes, indeed. Now I know that I'm pretty sure there's a couple that won't be able to join us this morning because of obligations. Several of them because of health, or not their own situation, but the situation of loved ones. Prayer request this morning. I have a personal prayer request this morning. A dear friend of ours named Bud died yesterday. So I would just ask for prayers for the family of Bud Taylor. A wonderful man, a life well lived, and I'm sure the family is going to get comfort from that knowledge. Pray that they do. So anyway, just keep the family in your prayers if you would, please. Thank you in advance on that. I'm not going to bother doing all the announcements. You know, it's Holy Week. You know, we've got lots going on Thursday at 7 o'clock. But actually, if you're coming in person tomorrow night to Holy Thursday, let me know if you're interested in taking part in it. I've got a few spots there. Good Friday, 7:30, live at the YMCA, and noon, live streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website. And then, of course, Easter Sunday, 7 o'clock sunrise service, 8:15 and 10:45. 10:45 is the only one that will be live streamed, but the other two will be in person. They'll all be in person. So here we are with chapter 3. This is not context. This is something educational for you. This is about how Mark writes. And I'm telling you now because today is our first encounter with this. There's something that Mark does, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 times during the gospel, during his book, his biography of Jesus, as it were. In fact, we can count them as we go along, or you can keep track of them. I'll probably lose count. Something that's called the Markan sandwich, Markan sandwich. Now, there's a more official, fancy, title, 2 words. Each one has 4 or 5 syllables to it. I don't remember it. Markan sandwich is much easier to remember. And so he does that a number of times during the gospel, during his biography. And today's our first time we're going to encounter it. I think we encounter it for the next several days, like once a day. Now, you might ask, Pastor Brian, what is a Markan sandwich? And I would say that's an excellent question. Excellent question. Thank you for asking what a Markan sandwich is. what a Markan sandwich is this. Mark takes a story A, and divides it in half, splits it somewhere. Okay. So that he ends up with story A1 and A2. And then he takes the second story, let's call it story B, and inserts it between the two pieces of story A. Okay, so you end up with a sandwich, story A1 or prime, story B in its entirety, and then story A2, the finishing part of the story. So story A becomes since it's split in parts, it becomes the two slices of bread, and story B becomes the filling, as it were. Now, don't think that the filling is more important than the bread, okay? Don't think that story B is more important than story A, because that's not the case. If you're making a sandwich, you got to have bread. You can have a sandwich without anything in it, but that's called a wish sandwich, where you have two slices of bread and you wish you had something to put in it. But the bread is important. So story A in both of its parts is important. So is story B. Sometimes they're very closely connected. In fact, today's, you might think it's all one thing, but it's actually a sandwich. But that's probably because we read it too fast and we don't pay attention. Now that we know about what a sandwich is, a Markan sandwich is, I think you'll pick up on them a little bit better, especially if you slow down. Now, why does Mark do it? There's a variety of different reasons, and there's a variety of different explanations. Everybody has a theory as to why he does it. And ultimately the answer is, I don't know. We don't know. And you know what? Rather than telling you what I think or telling you what other people think, I'm going to let you kind of come up with this one on your own. Why does Mark do it? Because each time he does it, he probably does it for a different purpose. All right. But today we're going to see the first one. And it's not right off the bat, but it's towards the middle/end of chapter 3. So here we are, chapter 3. Jesus went into the synagogue again and noticed a man with a deformed hand. Since it was the Sabbath, Jesus' enemies watched him closely. If he healed the man's hand, they planned to accuse him of working on the Sabbath. Pause. Interesting that Jesus already has enemies, right? I mean, he just started his ministry basically with yesterday, right? 2 days ago, a little bit, but really yesterday was when he started doing things and teaching things. And already Mark says he has enemies. His enemies were already out to get him. Jesus said to the man with the deformed hand, "Come and stand in front of everyone." Then he turned to his critics and said, "Does the law permit good deeds on the Sabbath, or is it a day for doing evil? Is this a day to save life or to destroy it?" But they wouldn't answer him. Pause. In some ways that is a rhetorical question. He really wasn't looking for an answer. He's just trying to get them to think and in some ways accuse them of things. Because what Jesus is saying is, by not doing good, that's the equivalent of doing evil. It would be a sin of omission rather than a sin of commission, we might say, if we're talking about sins. But we're participating in evil through our inaction rather than through our action, but it's still evil. It's still evil. Is this a day to save life or to destroy it? Now, let's be clear though, too, Mark doesn't say that the guy is dying. So that's going to be there. The other ones, the counter argument might be that he didn't save his life. He just changed it. But in changing it and transforming it, he, restored the man's life in a full way. So continuing, he looked around at them angrily and was deeply saddened by their hard hearts. Then he said to the man, "Hold out your hand." So the man held out his hand, and it was restored. At once, the Pharisees went away and met with the supporters of Herod to plot how to kill Jesus. Already. Continuing. excuse me, Jesus went out to the lake with his disciples, and a large crowd followed him. They came from all over Galilee, Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, from east of the Jordan River, and even from as far north as Tyre and Sidon. The news about his miracles had spread far and wide, and vast numbers of people came to see him. Pause. Wow, right? Wow. They came from all over the place to see him. First, we could probably blame the leper from chapter 2, because Jesus told him, "Don't say anything," right? But he did. He did. Now, this is that map I shared yesterday, and I'm going to show it a little bit again now. Anyway, so they're coming from all over the place. Remember, Jesus is here in Galilee, right here by the lake, probably right in this area near Capernaum. Okay. But it says they're coming from all over. They came from Judea, which is that southern kingdom. So these are people that would have had to either gone through Samaria or around Samaria. And even this place down here, Idumea, they came from what did it say? How did it say it here? East of the Jordan River. There's the Jordan River. So they came from east of the Jordan River, which would be the Decapolis and even Perea. So non-Israel, non-Jewish, most likely Gentile, even came to see Jesus. And they even came as far away, excuse me, they even came from as far away as Tyre and Sidon. This map isn't showing up so good here because I've got it expanded, but I believe this is Tyre here and this is Sidon way up here, both of which are up here in Syrophoenicia. So it's very far away. Again, not Israel, not Jewish at that point. Still part of the Roman Empire, but they came from all over. Well, let's blame that guy, the former leper. He was supposed to just go to the temple, show himself to the priests, but instead he went and told everybody. Now, somebody messaged me and said, well, he might have gone afterwards. Well, that's certainly true. And I hope he did, because then he would have gotten restored to community. But that really wasn't the point. The point was Jesus wanted him to do that first. He actually wanted the guy to follow the rules. And he also wanted him to kind of keep it quiet. Maybe you just wasn't ready to be exposed yet. Baseball season starts this week. All right, so continuing. They came from all over the place. But why did they come? Because they heard about the miracles and they came to see him. Probably because they wanted something from him. Continuing, Jesus instructed his disciples to have a boat ready so the crowd would not crush him. He had healed many people that day, so all the sick people eagerly pushed forward to touch him. And whenever those possessed by evil spirits caught sight of him, the spirits would throw them to the ground in front of him, shrieking, "You are the Son of God!" But Jesus sternly commanded the spirits not to reveal who he was. Continuing. After, Jesus went up on a mountain and called out the ones he wanted to go with him, and they came to him. Then he appointed 12 of them and called them his apostles. Pause. So out of the hundreds of people who were there, maybe even more than that, and there's a bunch that are following Jesus, Jesus is going to call out the ones that he wants to go with him. That's not the 12. It's bigger than the 12. There's in other places it's mentioned 72, which is a possibility. Other gospels talk about the 72. The 72, I think it's 72. So this is like that larger group of followers who are going to be going with him. But he also specifically calls out in names the 12. Those aren't just going to be his followers, they're going to be his apostles, his disciples. They were to accompany him, and he would send them out to preach, giving them authority to cast out demons. Pause. So out of the larger group, the 72, Jesus is specifying or 72 or more, whatever it was, Jesus is specifying the 12 and giving them special authority, special power, going to let them preach and teach and cast out demons and heal, or whatever it is that they need to do. These are the 12 he chose: Simon, whom he named Peter; James and John, the sons of Zebedee, but Jesus nicknamed them sons of thunder; Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, who later betrayed him. Pause. A couple things about this. First of all, did you notice which name isn't there? Right? Who did Jesus call just yesterday in chapter 2? Chapter 2, verses 13 and 14. Jesus calls to Levi, the tax collector, and has him call him. But Levi isn't listed among the 12. Now, a couple different things. A lot of people say, well, that's really Matthew. And that's a possibility. That's a possibility. In fact, that's what I think it's Luke and maybe Matthew that do that. That don't talk about Levi. They don't mention Levi. Mark's the only one that mentions Levi. They mention Matthew, and Matthew is mentioned here in this list. So some people say, well, it's the same person, just two different names. And that's possible. That's possible. The other possibility is they're two different people, and that Levi wasn't part of the 12, but he could have been part of that larger group. All right. Again, we can add that to the list of questions we can ask God when we get there, because no one really knows if they're the same person or if they're two different people. The Bible doesn't tell us that. The Bible doesn't tell us that. Okay. There's a couple other details in here as far as we kind of, and part of that's going to be based on if Levi and Matthew are the same. Okay. You've got a variety of different people, right? You've got fishermen who are fairly successful, not rich, but not as poor as maybe you had thought. Wealthy enough that they had boats, that they owned boats, and had workers, hired servants. You've got somebody who's a tax collector, who works for the evil government. You've also got Simon, who is described as a zealot. Now, what is a zealot? We use the word zealot as somebody who is just very passionate about something, to the extreme, about something. And we get it from this because that's kind of what they were, but it's a political term. It was a political term. They were a political group who wanted to get rid of the Roman government by any means necessary, including violence. So this is an odd character to have in this group of 12, especially if one of the others is a tax collector and was working with the Romans. Okay, so Jesus was all over the map. A motley crew of people. But that's who Jesus loves. And I mean, it's descriptive to me of the kingdom of God that we are our motley crew, and we're all welcome to be part of that same group, that same crew, the same club, whatever way you want to call it, the same family. Okay, but they're all over the map. So continuing, and now here's where we get to the first instance of the Markan sandwich. One time, Jesus entered a house, and the crowds began to gather again. Soon, he and his disciples couldn't even find time to eat. When his family heard what was happening, they tried to take him away. He's out of his mind, they said. Brief aside, that's part A. It's A, part 1. Now we're going to read story B. But the teachers of religious law who had arrived from Jerusalem said, "He's possessed by Satan, the prince of demons. That's where he gets the power to cast out demons." Jesus called them over and responded with an illustration. "How can Satan cast out Satan?" he asked. "A kingdom divided by civil war will collapse. Similarly, a family splintered by feuding will fall apart. And if Satan is divided and fights against himself, how can he stand? He could never survive. Let me illustrate this further. Who is powerful enough to enter the house of a strong man and plunder his goods? Only someone even stronger, someone who could tie him up and then plunder his house. I tell you the truth, all sin and blasphemy can be forgiven, but anyone who blasphemes the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven. This is a sin with eternal consequences. He told them this because they were saying he's possessed by an evil spirit. End of story B, back to story A. Then Jesus' mother and brothers came to see him. They stood outside and sent word for him to come out and talk with them. There was a crowd sitting around Jesus, and someone said, "Your mother and your brothers are outside asking for you." Jesus replied, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" Then he looked at those around him and said, "Look, these are my mother and brothers. Anyone who does God's will is my brother and sister and mother." End story A, end of chapter, not end of me talking. So that was the first instance of the Markan sandwich. Did you catch that? The way I hopefully you did, the way I broke it up and stuff. Story A is about Jesus's mother and brothers, the family, coming to take him away because he's out of his mind, coming to take him away, to protect him, to save him. And it starts with them going to do that, and then it ends with them attempting to do that. But story B cuts in the middle, which is about Pharisees, the religious leaders, the powerful religious folks coming and interjecting. And they're not saying that he's crazy. They're saying he's possessed by a demon, that he's, that he does the works of Satan, which would be, that's anathema to Jewish culture. The idea of practicing the black arts, and probably would have been justification for stoning, for execution. So that was why they were trying to do that. They're saying, "Oh, he's doing that because he's in league with Satan." Jesus says, "How can Satan cast out Satan?" Which again is rhetorical question, just kind of throwing things in people's faces. And one of Jesus's methods. His other thing is hyperbole. So anyway, that's chapter 3. Hopefully, God spoke to you through what you read and heard today. Hopefully, you learned something new. Hopefully, you feel this time has been beneficial for you. I thank you for joining me. I thank you for your time. I know it's valuable. So, folks, as you go about your day today, keep your eyes and ears, your physical and spiritual eyes and ears open to what God is doing in your life and in the life of those around you. When you see it, say thanks, and then tell somebody about it, including me. I really want to know. I want to hear. So until tomorrow, my friends,